Welcome to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Kiosk from the floor of AUSA, Day 2. As we dive into today's discussion, we'll explore how the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is making a lasting impact both at home and abroad. We'll cover our critical efforts in Hawaii, where we're actively supporting Maui's recovery following last year's devastating wildfires. Along with that, we'll highlight the extensive work we're doing to bolster our military allies and partners across the Pacific. Plus, we'll take a look at some of the groundbreaking innovations coming out of our U.S. Army Engineer Research and Development Center, which is shaping the future of engineering and defense. Let me introduce our speakers today. Brigadier General Kirk Gibbs, Deputy Commanding General for Military and International Operations, Headquarters, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Sir. Colonel Jess Curry, Director of the Office of Chief of Engineers, Headquarters, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Sir. Mr. Nick Boone, Director of the Geotechnical and Structures Laboratory at the U.S. Army Engineer Research and Development Center in Vicksburg, Mississippi. Sir. General Gibbs, can you open us up for comments this morning?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much, Annette. It's an absolute honor to be here. I thank AUSA for this event and giving us this time to talk about important things, talk about our mission. But I'm particularly honored to talk a little bit about Maui and the response and recovery from the Maui wildfires that occurred in August of 2023. I was still the commander. I lived out there for 4 years, and I was the commander for the first 10 months of that. Of course, Colonel Curry led that effort with our recovery field office for 6 months. But Lahaina out in Maui, a very, very special place, the former capital of the Kingdom of Hawaii. It has tremendous cultural and historical significance. And I remember the first time I went there. I always had a favorite town on every island that I visited out there over the 4 years. And Lahaina was that town in Maui. I visited in November of 2021. And there, sometimes I remember things that others wouldn't think, that important or memorable. But my son, who was 17 years old, bought his first pair of sunglasses. And I never understood that in Hawaii, why he didn't want sunglasses, but he bought them in Lahaina. And 2 years later, when I returned, I was going to visit Jess and the team as they began the initial response in August of 23, and it was heartbreaking. What we learned is that it was a very complex mission, particularly on the debris clearance side. Even the experts who had been doing this in the Corps of Engineers for years stated it was the most complex that they had ever encountered, but it was also the most special, I think, because of the people they met, the work they were doing to help really a historical town that had burned to the ground within minutes, help them recover, and many of them today are going back and starting to rebuild their homes as we've cleared those areas. So I highlight, and I know Jess will talk a little bit more about the cultural significance and aspects. We had cultural monitors with us every step of the way. So just a very special mission. Extremely proud of that team, Jess, and then following him, Eric Swenson, and all the folks that deployed for many months and continue to be deployed out there. Incredible work, so proud of them, so proud to be associated with that mission. But many of those same folks are in the southeastern United States right now, across numerous states, as we respond and recover from hurricanes Helene and Milton. We've got 350 people from USACE deployed there right now, and counting contractors, over 600, and that's only going to grow as we move into the recovery part of Milton. So I'm looking forward to hearing from these folks, and particularly from Nick as well, on what the Engineering Research and Development Center is doing across the Pacific and also across the globe. Thanks for your...
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. So, Colonel Curry, I'd like to ask you, tell us more about the Maui recovery mission you saw for 6 months, and what continues today?
Yeah, thanks, Annette. And I'll just start by saying what an honor it is, not only to be here today and to share this, but really to just be associated with this special effort that really means a tremendous amount to all who were involved, for the difference we were able to make, for the Corps of Engineers, the multi-agency, all those that came together to address a great need with a lot of wonderful effort to help this community recover. So as General Gibbs mentioned, I commanded what was called the Recovery Field Office, which really served as a focal point for all the capabilities from across the Corps of Engineers. Great professionals that experts in their fields came together, focused in the RFO to provide this service back to the community. And it was a wide range of efforts that we were called upon to take on as part of the FEMA response, working alongside the EPA, FEMA, other agencies from the federal government. Primarily, we started with a power mission. That initial emergency response, that initial search and rescue effort was enabled by a power mission. A lot of elements came in to help provide that. We quickly transitioned to debris to really start the much longer term process of recovery. And as we dove into that effort, it was complex. There were a lot of things that hadn't been seen before, and definitely not to that scale. And the challenges of putting that package together and to create this system of contracts and efforts and all the necessary steps to bring people together to address this requirement really was complex, but we had a tremendous cooperation across all agencies to enable to get that set up and started. Alongside that, and really what we had to start with, which was foundational throughout it all, is an awareness of the culture that we were immersed in. We had to start with a respect for that community, for that culture, and recognize that this was not just a normal job site. And we every morning in the RFO, we held our morning stand-up meetings, and every morning we recited a creed, and at the end it said, this is not just a regular job site. And that was a reminder to us all that we couldn't be faceless. We couldn't be, the federal government showing up to just check things off of a task list. We had to be brave to engage with the public and to stand there alongside them. In some cases, hug, cry, really be a part of the community. And it was hard at first because the community was reeling, and the trust was not there because we hadn't built it yet. So as we started in the first few weeks, the first month or two, that challenge to build trust among the community was really job number one. And we did that in a couple ways. We brought in cultural monitors, we brought in cultural advisors. We leaned on the cultural leaders in that community to help us, to teach us, and to help us build that trust with the community that they needed. Because it really wasn't completely about recovery and removing debris. It was about rebuilding hope in that community. One of the very unique missions here, we built a school. Really, really special. And we built that school in 95 days, which was aggressive.
Wow.
And we had several doubters that said that, and they were right to have their concerns that, hey, are you going to be able to do this on an island? All the logistical challenges that would come along with building a school to serve as the interim school after the King Kamehameha III school was destroyed. The team came together. One of the things that we did that was a key to that success was we hired local. We used small businesses. We brought on folks to help build that school that were part of the community. And every single day on that job site, you could feel that. You were able to experience that. For them, it wasn't just another school. It wasn't just another job site. Every day they were fighting through those challenges because they were building a school for their kids and their community. And that made it so tremendously special for everyone involved. We also continued between the debris mission, the school mission, we also had a housing mission that is continuing on to this day. And that's to help just address those points of need. But throughout all those diverse missions, the community was the center focus for what we were trying to be a part of. We were allowing ourselves to be immersed in that community, to let them, impact us, right, so that we could serve them better. And it really played out in a very special way to where everyone involved in the Maui mission, it changed their lives.
Right.
And we also said that quite often, this is going to change your life. And it absolutely did for everybody involved.
Thank you, sir. And so what were some of the innovations in this mission?
Yeah, so I would mention just real briefly 3 kind of points of innovation. And the first one is similar to what I was just speaking about, is a recognition of the cultural sensitivity, the cultural environment that we were there. What was damaged, I wouldn't say destroyed, in that community, was something we had to pay attention to. Things that were sacred to the people of Lahaina, the people of Maui. We had to come in recognizing that those had a significant value, and we could not look past those. So cultural advisors, cultural training, utilizing folks from the university to come in and teach us, utilizing the informal leadership, the aunties and uncles from the community to come alongside us, and in some cases help us see our blind spots to what we didn't understand, so that we could engage with the community. So that was really, really special, and a key innovation that I think for the Corps, we've done that in other places, but never to this extent from the beginning, and just again embracing that from the start and actually going out with contracts, for cultural contracts. And the second piece is the small business, a focus on that, utilizing the local economy. As we brought those folks in, I shared the story about the school, but I would also share a similar story about the debris mission. When the operator in the excavator knows the family of the house that they're clearing, they're clearing it, they're doing that work with a whole nother level of care and attention to detail. And plus the family, which we were standing on the street watching this with our folks there to help them work through that process, a whole nother layer of trust, a whole nother layer of confidence that this is going to get done the right way, because they know what is sacred to me on my property. So utilizing those small contracts, boosting the local economy, which had lost its means of employment for so many people, was probably the second innovation. The third innovation is still ongoing, and it's a program called LifeSim that the Corps has brought into this conversation. A key factor in the severity of this fire was the reality that once it started and it burned so quickly and so hot, evacuation was a problem, and unfortunately, people perished because they just couldn't get out. So the LifeSim program goes and looks and helps model, how can we rebuild Lahaina in a safer, more resilient way, so that if God forbid fires come back, that people can evacuate. That we have learned from this situation and rebuilt in a way that helps protect lives. So those are 3. I'm sure there's others, but those are the 3 I would mention.
Thank you so much, sir.
If I could foot stomp one thing,
Yes, sir.
His first innovation that he talked about, the Corps, in almost any mission we do, the goal is go as fast as you can, get it done. In this particular case, the Hawaiian people and the stakeholders there do it right, do it respectfully, and that's what we need you to do. And I remember when the Chief of Engineers, Lieutenant General Spellman, came on his first visit, it was still, I think, back here in DC, this, we need to get this done, we need to go fast. And I remember he came out and just briefed him, and I remember him going, I get it. It was different, and they did it so well.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Nick Boone, so happy to see you, and it's an honor to work with you and many others at the U.S. Army Engineer Research and Development Center. So that being said, can you tell us, and we'll call it ERDC, we refer to it as ERDC, can you tell us more about ERDC?
Sure, thanks Annette. Happy to be here and honored to represent the more than 3,000 engineers and scientists, support professionals, technicians, and craftspeople back at our laboratories. As we just heard, innovation happens across the Corps every day, everywhere. But ERDC is a special place. I think we have a focus focus and a whole mission on looking for innovation every day. So we're 7 laboratories spread across 4 states with employees coming from 46 different states, and as I heard last week, I think representing 500 different universities. So we're leaning forward, looking for innovation in all the mission areas that the Corps is responsible for, both civil works, military construction. We even do a lot of international cooperation. And lastly, sitting here today for the Warfighter, a lot of emphasis on warfighter modernization. Been a heavy part of the Army Futures Command vision for the past few years, and it's refreshing to sit here and see a lot of those modernization priorities come to fruition, and how industry is going to bring those to the warfighter. So we're plugged in, supporting all of these diverse missions that the Corps provides to the nation.
Well, so we in fact have some ertic technology with us here today. Can you tell us what we're looking at here at the booth?
Sure. This is a great example actually of innovation and how the Corps can either dual use or multi-use technologies for different mission sets. So we have here the ship simulator, which originally was developed for a civil works mission to help the Corps understand how various navigation and flood control construction projects might impact the navigation of that particular riverine environment. About 5 years ago, the Corps and ertic were able to adapt that to also simulate amphibious landings. So we were supporting the Marine Corps in identifying the best time, location, and weather to do these types of amphibious landings. So military spin-off use. And in fact, what we're highlighting here today is kind of an emergency response use of that. So the Francis Scott Key Bridge recovery and how that simulation in the midst of the the recovery effort was used to help those pilots understand what's the minimum navigable passage width that we would need. So we've seen this technology been used in multiple different applications. In the future, we're looking to kind of extend it maybe even into the autonomous realm, as industry begins to develop autonomous kits for either our Army Engineer bridge erection boats that build our bridges across the globe, or maybe the Army watercraft vessels that conduct those amphibious landings. We want to be able to simulate those amphibious landings with autonomous operations and kind of get the soldiers out of harm's way.
Okay, so what are some other exciting ertic technologies and innovations supporting the Army and DoD?
Yeah, happy to go into it. So we're sitting here right across from the Future Vertical Lift booth looking at the Future Long Range Assault Attack Aircraft. We're currently supporting them with computational models on our high performance computing systems, helping the OEMs and the Army understand what the best configuration of that might be to achieve their objective requirements. Next gen combat vehicle, I've seen a lot of robotic combat vehicles around the displays here. We've also been supporting them to understand how those robotic combat vehicles would interact with the terrain. The engineers are the terrain experts. We've recently been adapting those same simulation capabilities to support engineer breaching activities. So working very closely with the 20th Engineer Brigade and the 36th Engineer Brigade to see how robotic platforms could get us through those complex minefields. And so why wait to do that in a physical environment when you could put the soldier in a virtual trainer and let them mission rehearse right now? I could go on and on. I think every modernization priority ertic has been supporting. A lot of support to unexploded ordnance, which is a challenge in construction overseas. General Gibbs asked about kind of Pacific focused efforts. That there's a need there. How can we assist our construction activities as well as kind of airfield clearance with unexploded ordnance identification? We've been working on mobility enablers to get us across the beach with submersible matting and ability to restore insertion capabilities into airfields and rails. So infrastructure in general and how the Corps enables that movement of the warfighter into a certain theater, that's a lot of focus of our research at this point.
Well, thank you, sir. Sir, would you like to close us out with some comments?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks so much, Annette. It's been great to join you both in this session, and I hope that I wish everybody could see the Maui mission and the school that was built in 95 days. One of the most amazing things I've seen. And ertic, I focus on the Pacific. I lived out there for 4 years. But from the Alaska district and the cold weather environment, and then the island conditions across the entire Pacific that we build in, we work so closely with ertic when we have a challenge. And they're very close partners with numerous other nations that they share their capabilities with. So this has been a great session. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers just surpassed 40,000 people on our rolls to match the largest workload that we've ever had. We are truly in the midst of transforming for a complex world. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for being here. And thank you for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed learning more about the incredible work the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is doing to support both our nation and our military. Be sure to stop by the USACE kiosk here at AUSA Army Exhibit, booth 1825, to see some of the exciting technology we've discussed up close here today. So don't forget to tune in tomorrow. From ideas to action, USACE is shaping the future.